Hi, I'm Gemma from Gemma and Company, and today I want to show you how I make my collapsible fabric storage box. You'll need some cardboard pieces. Now, I know we've probably got a cardboard box lying around from that Amazon package you've probably had delivered recently. So we're going to need to cut out some pieces from that, and then also which will make it a little bit easier for you. This is optional, but I do find it easier for cutting my pattern pieces out of the fabric is to actually cut out some pieces from either cardstock or paper in the size with seam allowance, so just a little bit bigger, of the box. And you're also going to need, whether it is scissors or a rotary tool to cut your fabric out, and a fabric pen. I like these fabric pens because you can erase them either with heat or with water. It just makes life so much simpler when you don't have to worry about it staining your fabric and everything else. I mean, you can use your chalk if you want to, but I have to say I like the pens. So now we're going to head into cutting out our fabric pattern pieces. We're going to need 2 of the base pieces, which for this pattern and for the video that I'm showing you, it is an 8x8 base, so this pattern piece is actually a 9x9. I've given myself a 1/2 inch allowance all the way around. Now you can make this box whatever size you want, it doesn't really matter, but for this video that is what that is. So we're going to cut that out, and you can use your rotary tool, or I have just decided to use my scissors. I found it just easier to do that. Try and use a surface that you don't mind cutting on as well. So I have this awesome cutting mat that I found secondhand, which is amazing. The next piece I'm going to cut out is the wall of the box. Now this is doubled up because then we can fold it over the top. We're going to slide that cardboard piece inside when we're done. This is so that we don't need a seam on the top. It makes it look a lot neater, a lot tidier. So that's what I've done here. So this box up the side is 6 inches. So with the seam allowance and everything else, plus a little bit extra, I've given myself 14 inches, and that is by 8 as well. Now we're going to go into cutting out 4 of the tie pieces. Now again, this can be customizable to whatever size you want. I actually did pretty chunky ties for this, and I found them a little bit too thick, but it was fine. The tie pieces are actually double the length they're going to be. And again, it's, what's that phrase? Work smarter, not harder. So we will be cutting those in half, but it saves having to cut out 8 pieces. We're going to cut 4 instead, which is, in my view, good. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to attach one of my base fabric pieces to the base cardboard piece. We're going to be using a spray adhesive. Now, if anyone has ever used this stuff, it gets everywhere. So put down a surface that you don't mind getting sticky, or take it outside. Give your can a good shake, and we're going to cover the surface of the cardboard, and we're also going to be covering the surface of the fabric. So once that is covered, then we will take our fabric piece, lay it over that piece of cardboard and attach it, smoothing it with your hand, making sure that there's no bumps or creases in it, and then folding over all the edges around as well. Now, do your best to get the edges in as well as you can. I ended up with them sticking up a little bit, so I just cut them off. You know, this is a homemade little box. I'm not going to be too obsessive over getting it absolutely perfect. And this piece actually, to be honest, is hidden inside, so you're not even going to see it. But I didn't want to see any rough edges inside, and I needed it to be firm. So this is what we're doing. So once that's attached and you've got all of the edges in and nice and neat, and I've trimmed them off, we're just going to put that off to one side because that will need to dry. So that piece is done. From there, we're going to move on to the tie pieces. Now, to do this, I fold them in half so the wrong side is facing out, and I will iron those flat. And again, this is the work smarter, not work harder strategy. So by ironing them, I don't have to pin them. So I fold them in half, I give them an iron, and then I take them to the sewing machine. Simple. The other part that I've made I made a few mistakes on this, and I learned from this one, is to fold over one of both of the edges, both sides of this, actually saying that. And we're going to sew in a teeny tiny little hem on the bottom, and this is so that when you unfold it, you've already got that raw edge hemmed. Again, it makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, you can leave it a raw edge, or you're going to have to tuck that itty bitty bit in, and it's from experience not the easiest thing to do, not gonna lie. So I just folded it over, I whizzed it through the machine. Again, might not be the tidiest, but it works just fine. So I did that, and then I went ahead and just sewed down the length of my ties. After that, what we're going to do is cut them in half so that they're short. And again, this is to make our life simple, because we're going to have to sit and move and we're going to have to sit and turn those pieces the right side out. And for anyone who's done this before, just put on a good show and just take your time. If you've got an amazing trick, well done to you, but unfortunately, I haven't quite found that one yet. These ties were a little bit thicker, so they actually were probably the easiest of all the boxes that I made, because I actually made the ties a little bit thinner for the other ones. But anyway, it is what it is. When you DIY, when you do these little jobs, it's always going to be that one little fiddly part, that you can't get away from, but we just do it. Don't forget as well, just as we're sewing these pieces, to trim off any end little strands and strings and threads and keep it tidy. It makes life a lot easier when it's tidy. So anyway. Oh yeah, another thing, please don't judge me for my sewing machine. I know it's not the cleanest. I've got fuzz everywhere, and I didn't realize it until I'd made this video. And there's a close-up shot coming up, and yes, there's fuzz. But anyway, it's fine. It is what it is. Anyway, so once we've got them all turned the right way, take them again to your iron and iron them flat so that we have these nice little ties. Look at those, aren't they fantastic? Nice and simple. So move those off to the side. Now we're going to start on the walls of the box. This is actually really simple to do. We begin with measuring the side. To be honest, you don't really need to measure the side of the box, you know what it is, but it's worth just doing a visual just to see where you want the tie to be. For this video and this box particularly, I did right in the middle, around 3 inches. For the pattern on my blog, you'll notice that I said 2 inches. I did find 2 inches a little bit easier, being that they're a little bit higher up. But again, it doesn't really matter. They both work just fine. It's a nice decorative feature. They're not, again, structurally sturdy boxes. They're just nice decorative boxes. So once we've decided on where they're going to go, we will fold the fabric. I did it the wrong side out just so then it doesn't really matter. So fold it inside out. Now on the crease going down, because we have a seam allowance, make a little mark at that 3 or 2 inches or whichever measure you decided to put that tie. So once you've got your little marks on, open the fabric back out, and you should, even though I've done it on the wrong side of the fabric, you should be able to still see it through the fabric if you're using one of these pens. If not, you can always fold the fabric over. Now we're going to be placing our tie right in the middle of that, and I found it's easy just to fold the tie in half and place it on the dot. Make sure that the seam of your tie though is facing your raw edge, so it's the end to the bottom, not the fold at the top. So we want that to be facing down that way. We then will pin it edge to edge with the tie facing inwards. And again, I folded it into the middle because it's to hold it out the way. So do that with both sides, and then we'll fold that fabric over the top. So now we have the wrong side facing out, and pin down the side. Now we are going to mark out where we're going to be sewing. This is to make it a lot easier for you. We want the cardboard insert to be nice and snug. We don't want it to be loose and not loosey-goosey, like all floaty in there. We want it to be nice and snug. So I found the easiest way. You can measure it, you can totally measure it, but the easiest way is just to get your piece of cardboard, and line it up as central as you can, and then draw down either side of that, and then that will give you your where we're going to be sewing it down. So once that's been marked out, place it into your machine and sew down those seams. Then once that is done, before I forget, don't forget to take out that middle pin, because I tend to, because they're facing inwards, I leave them as I sew. You don't have to move them. If you got the ball end, make sure that it's not going to get stuck with your foot, but otherwise you don't have to move those as you're sewing down, which helps the tie not move. But don't forget to take that pin out, because it is hidden in there when you open it, but just don't forget, otherwise you'll be stabbing yourself and wondering why. So tidy off all the loose threads. Now, just to make it nice and neat and less bulky, trim up your seams along that edge, just so when we unfold it that there's no bulky seam inside. Turn it the right way out, pushing out the corners, and then take your edge cardboard piece and slide that inside, making sure that it fits and all the edges of the seams are nice and tidy. So that's the next stage. We're going to repeat this now for the other sides. So by the time we have finished this part, we should have 4 complete sides, and now we're ready to get on with the base. For the beginning of the base part, we're actually going to be trimming the bottom of those walls, those wall pieces. And that is just because you'll probably find you'll have a little bit of excess material there, and when we come to line up our base and sew it, it is just easier to have it at a 1/2 inch from the cardboard piece. So from the cardboard piece, measure out 1/2 inch all the way down. Use your ruler to draw that line and then cut along that. So then we should have a 1/2 inch seam from the cardboard to the very end. This will just make it a lot easier. I tried to measure it up and line it up without, and well, when you've unpicked the thing, 3-4 times, you learn fast. So I'm trying to show you all the little tips and tricks that should save you the time when it comes down to it, because oh man, no one likes to unpick nothing. So once that is done, and again, when I first did this, I couldn't get my head around it. So right side facing up for your base, lay your wall facing inward so the seams match up on either side, and lay that flat. Make sure that you've got a little bit of seam on either side, on the left and the right of that piece, that wall piece as well. You'll need that. To sew this up, I actually used a zipper foot. I don't know if this is an invisible zipper foot. I think it's Zip Foot E, I believe, according to Amazon when I looked it up. I found this just gets me closer to the cardboard. Now you can use a normal foot and move that needle across if you want. I think that would work just fine. You don't want it super tight against the card, so I use the card as that edge. You'll see in this video that I used it up against the edge, because we still want to be able to fold it out, up and out. We don't want it to be too tight, but get it as close as you can. That's comfortable. So once you've got that first side down, open it up, and now we're going to lay the next wall on. So just like before, inward facing, right side up for the base, lay that piece on top. Now you'll notice, because of that seam probably, you may not have a piece on the right hand side facing out. So you might just have that little extra seam edge on the left. But yes, line it up with the last cardboard piece, make sure it's lined up nice and evenly. So when it's folded downwards and in, that wall edge will actually line up with the cardboard edge as well of the last wall that you've done. And again, repeat this all the way around so that by the time you get to the end, it should just line up with no edges, no seams, and nothing. So we're on the final stretch. This is it, we're nearly done. So for this part, there are options. You can spray adhesive it in, you can glue gun it in, you could add another piece of cardboard to make it a little bit firmer, or you could just leave it loose. And that is your base. So I didn't glue this in here, I just threw it in. The other ones I have glued in, I just think it's nicer, a little bit tidier. I just use the spray adhesive. We'll see if that lasts. I may go in with my glue gun after the fact with more cardboard just to make it more firm. Now you can see with the thicker ties here and being a little bit lower down, the box doesn't necessarily look like it's super firm and upright. But that's fine. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for it to look decorative. Look how that goes, towels. So cute. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed making this collapsible fabric storage box with me, and follow along for more videos to come. Bye.